been great, and I love it. I love his original compositions, and all the musicians that he's had in his life have always been so good. I mean, I think San Diego is so lucky to have him. You know, he's really a true, you know, one of the legends of the saxophone.
Charles McPherson is one of the real deals, and there's not very many around. And with his age and who he's played with, like I just was watching him play with Mingus last week on a video, and it's incredibly current, and you know, he sounds incredible.
The thing that hit me was just about everybody in Dallas were North Texas alumnus, and really everybody had degrees and all this, and you come out to LA, nobody has degrees hardly. They're all just have been great players from the word go, and that's how a Charles McPherson is. He's always just been, you know, the second coming of Charlie Parker.
A great jazz improviser is a storyteller, you know, and Charles McPherson is a storyteller. You know, you hear the tradition, but you also hear him developing something and thinking, and having such control and such facility to be able to create something meaningful in a spontaneous moment.
Anybody that knows Charles McPherson learns that it's more than the playing. It's also what comes out of here, your soul, and this is your breath as you're improvising. So he's the real deal.
So playing with Charles McPherson is a dream come true in so many ways. One, the historical component. When you hear Charles and the respect that he has for history, the way he embraces Charlie Parker and his sound. The core of his sound is just so soulful. So when I play with Charles, I feel like a baby playing with an adult.
All you have to do is listen to that Barry Harris record, Bullseye. He is one of the originals, and he, you know, much like Sonny Stitt and all the alto players that came after Charlie Parker, there's original things that you can do with that music. Nobody can sound just like Charlie Parker. And Charles McPherson found his original way right away.
Playing with Charles McPherson is uplifting, inspirational, thrilling, a challenge, and one of the things I look forward to doing very much anytime I can.
It's electrifying. It's really, for me, there's a certain energy he has in his playing that's just, it's exciting, just the sound. There's an emotion, a passion in his music that I can't think of anybody else who has that.
How did you choose your personnel?
Well, the singer was chosen because she lives here, Lorraine Teresa. So I did want a singer. The suite involving A Song of Songs was a young lady. It's her story of unrequited love, pretty much. And so the fact that you know, it's a young lady, I thought it was apropos to have a young lady involved singing as well as playing the guitar, because she played the guitar on that. The other suite, Sweet Synergy, there's no singer, you know. And then there's also another reflection on an election, reflection and hope. That's part of another suite. And so the musicians I wanted to use really great musicians. And I was going to be in New York. We were going to record in New York. So it was just better to use New York musicians. And the piano player, Jeb Patton, I think you know Jeb, right? And also Randy Porter, the pianist. Now Randy's from here. He actually went to Hoover, so he's a San Diego guy that lives in Oregon now. But he comes here often to visit his parents, and he's a great pianist. You know, very extremely harmonically sophisticated and good technique. And Jeb Patton, great pianist. Now Jeb is a New York pianist. So Randy was involved with all of the ballet. He was the pianist on the ballet. And he also helped engineer the record as well, the CD as well. Terrell Stafford, great trumpet player. I've worked with him in other situations. I wanted to get him because there's a trumpet on the Sweet Synergy music, that part of the suites, and then Yotam Silverstein, guitarist. He's an Israeli guitarist that lives in New York. Extremely talented young man. Billy Drummond, great really wonderful drummer. Really good musician, very smart, very musical. David Wong, bassist, marvelous bass player.
What are your priorities when you kind of put together something so significant?
Well, I have to like the way I think about using musicians and playing with musicians. I have to like them as people. It's very hard for me to play with, no matter how great or wonderful they might be. If I don't like them, that interferes with the creative process, at least on my end. So I have to like them, and then there must be a meeting of musical minds. There must be some symbiosis. There's got to be synergy, and whatever that magic, undefinable thing. Well, no, it's definable. Synergy and you resonate musically with each other as people and as musicians. So I look for that, and also look for a similarity in styles. There's got to be some common denominator, even if the styles might not be totally alike. But quite often there are common denominators that's in both particular styles, and so I look for that, because that has something to do with the synergy part, the symbiosis, And so what we did, we worked at a club in New York, the Jazz Standard, and that served as not only as a gig but a rehearsal for the record date. And I used those musicians in the club, the same musicians on the record date. And so we did 4 days, and then that was, some rehearsing and maybe enough. Hopefully it was enough, and then we recorded.
What's an important character aspect?
Well, for me, that empathy has something to do with this, because empathy can manifest itself in different ways. And in terms of art and music, empathy also means the act of understanding and being open and being thoughtful, not only from your point of view, but to be aware of others. So, and when you use empathy with music, this is what brings about synergy. And so I feel that, so if I can use that word, that to me has something to do with people that I tend to be okay with. Let me see if I dare use the word intelligence. That has something to do with it. And when I say intelligence, I don't mean just left brain or just right brain. I mean left and right brain. So intelligent in terms of just the cognitive ability to understand, but also this other kind of intelligence that's got to do with feeling, emotion, and that part of the mind that takes care of those things. So I look for that. And of course, craft. which to me is just the ability to have be able to execute musical behavior and artistic behavior by way of the by whatever medium, you know, if you're playing bass, if you're singing, if you're playing piano, saxophone, that there's craft involved, and there's you have to there are certain physicalities that you conquer in terms of craft, and that's physical to me. The other one is emotional, all subconscious and conscious, but it's in the world of mind. And so just a person that has all of that. So basically, I guess, dimension. And also, I look for people who understand the different emotions that people feel. Everybody feels happiness, everybody feels sadness, everybody feels apprehension, mystery, thoughtfulness. So the human condition is based on a menu of emotionalities. So as an artist, I think that you are supposed to be able to, by your medium, and we're talking about music, to actually portray all the human emotions, all of them. So that means you have to be empathetic to understand, you know, and you must have a world view, and you must be a human being that feels. And so I look for, you know, I mean, and when I judge players, I can hear all that. And so if I have my way, I choose people that seem to do all of that well.
Can you tell us just a little bit about the 4-day recording in New York? Was it a very long recording session? Did you do 8 hours? What did it feel like?
Yeah, well, you know what? It was long. Yeah, it was long, and you know, recording is kind of, there is some stress involved with recording, and I just remember there were long days. The days were long, you know, because we had to do things over more than once, often, and you know, there would be technical problems on their end, you know, but then there would be things that we would, as musicians, we would mess up or make a mistake or do something wrong. So with all of that, it makes it a long day. And it is an element of stress there, because, you know, when you record, it's for posterity. This is it, you know. And so knowing that, that's like, you know, it's in your mind. And while you're in the act of performing and reading music and being very careful about trying not to make mistakes, and to know to make one means you got to do this all over again, or this is forever, you know. This has a way of interfering with the natural flow. So, you know, one must conquer that, you know, and beat that, you know, which is tricky.
How do you conquer that? I mean, are you a perfectionist? How do you...
Well, to an extent, but I know that quite often there's no such thing as perfection, you know. So, yeah, I mean, I'm still a little bit nervous in recording situations.
Was there a particular tension release kind of thing that you were going for that song?
Well, the idea to do the lyrics in Hebrew was the idea of the singer, Lorraine, and she, you know, she had a friend help her with the accents and the language, and so I had written the lyrics, but in English, of course, and it was her idea to do part of the song in Hebrew, and the first part, and then the last part of Love Dance was done with the English words that I used. So I thought that was effective, and I thought that was different and effective and was authentic to a point, you know. I thought it was congruent and consistent with what the project and what the song was, because the story is it's an old Bible Testament story, and these people were Hebrew, right? So, and the music is you know, that suite is based on all of that. So I thought it was consistent. And when I was approached to do this particular project, the choreographer, the choreographer for the San Diego Ballet, Javier Velasco, asked me would I like to do Song of Songs, because he always had wanted to do that. And I said, okay, I'll do it. So, you know, I had read that Bible verse, it's an Old Testament, you know. And I had read that before, but now I'm reading it again. I'll go online, and because it's a complicated story. It's not a real story. It's not necessarily linear, and a lot of it is dream state. It's a different language, you know, thousands of years ago, and it's kind of almost like a poetry. So it was kind of tricky, and a lot of people, nobody was 100% certain about everything about what this story was about. But the one thing, when I looked at all the different websites and other people's take on that story, the one thing that was consistent was it was about unrequited love. You know, love between two people that was not realized. So I just went with that. And then I tried to find as much variety emotionally to have to not be boring, because I don't want every song just be sad and dark about unfulfilled love. So you got to have some joy. Love dance. You do have to represent dark, sad emotionality based on unrequited love. So I have that represented in Hear My Plea, which is a prayer-like composition. Also in Heart's Desire. But then there's, you know, there's a little mystery in there, and thoughtfulness, and wishful thinking, you know. So I try to represent enough balance emotionally that represents itself in different tempos, so everything is not the same, you know. So I want, you know, kind of happy, fast tempo, medium, slow. I try to be varied in that way. You know.
Still on Love Dance, I heard a lot of blues influence. I heard a lot of diminished kind of patterns, not just from you, but in the melody itself, and then the guitar, whoever soloed after was kind of maintaining a similar theme, but the diminished didn't last forever. All of a sudden it released into either a more major 7, minor 7 kind of
feel. There you go.
So
that's exactly what it was. Yeah. Yeah, so the way I thought about it harmonically is this way. I didn't want to mirror and Xerox ancient Hebrew music. All I want to do is capture nuance, you know. So what I did, I went online and looked at, there are a lot of sites that you can pull up, and there are a lot of people who play ancient Hebrew music. And I listened to a lot of it. And then I came to the conclusion that I did not want to imitate that, because I can't. I don't have the instrumentation, and I'm not, you know, I'm not a Hebrew musician. You know what I mean? So what I wanted to do was just capture enough of the harmonic influences and the scales. So what you do hear, you will hear the harmonic minor scale, you will hear some Middle Eastern scale-like things, and so you're going to hear some of that, and I'm always going to have some of that going on in all of the compositions, just enough to tip my hat to the scales and the sonic manifestations of that music. But I didn't want to totally clone it, because I wanted to mix it with jazz. So just enough harmonic nuance to say, yeah, this is Middle Eastern and this is, you know, this. But with jazz chords and sensibilities and rhythms. So it's a hybrid. So this is what I tried for. So you will hear that.
The next one, Heart's Desire, it was just a beautiful, beautiful piece. Your use of what I think is the wide range, and so I think like you use a very wide vibrato as opposed to like a tight vibrato. Use wide dynamic range. Sometimes you growled in there, and so Heart's Desire I could hear particularly was very emotionally charged.
Yeah, well, because I mean, to actually portray the emotion, you know, if the emotion of that particular song, Heart's Desire, was really unrequited love, especially from the woman's point of view, and so I wanted to really show what that feels like, which just doesn't feel. I mean, it's a sad state. Yeah, it's a very it's a dark emotion. You know, it's about, you know, what we've been talking about. It's you know, unrealized love. So if I'm going to play a song that's dealing with that, I have to feel that as a player. You know, and because I've always felt that for the performer, unless you're able to feel yourself while performing the exact emotionality that you're trying to portray and show other people that are listening, if you're not feeling that yourself, how are you going to make one other human being feel that? How? Just because you're clever, or you played A minor 7th to D7 and you played all the right notes? More to it than that, you know. So you have to actually feel what it is you want to show the people, or want the people to feel. So you have to feel it while you're in the act of doing it. It's a sad song, so I just brought about, you know, I know what unrequited love feels like. I've been there, so I know how to play it, you know. And by the way, to me, that's the difference between art and craft. Yeah, now it's not necessarily dark. There's a little bit of a hopefulness, and there's an energy there because the tempo is a little faster and different. And I mean, that could be construed as more than one emotion. You know what I mean? It could be I must have you, you know. And you really, I'm really serious about this. Enough so to everything is faster and sped up, you know. And this is where I do kind of use those different scales right at that spot there. And then I go back to the very sad, you know.
I noticed that this song in particular, of the 15 tracks, this song I could picture must have been kind of challenging to coordinate with a dancer, because they feel in like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, but there were a lot of tempo changes and dynamic changes. How did you did that happen after or before?
Well, that's the genius of the choreographer Javier, because when we first started collaborating, actually the first suite that I did was Sweet Synergy. So linearly, when I first joined that company, that was the first performance, was Sweet Synergy. And Song of Songs is later, like the last performance actually. But we just decided to put it differently on the CD. But when I first met him and got involved with the company, he just said, listen, I can choreograph to anything. You just write, don't worry, I'll take care of the dances. You write what you feel, and you just take care of that part of it. So he could, and so he's like, that's his genius. So he could take the music and this is what they do, and they just do their magic on that. And the dancers are very talented people as well.
Was there a particular song that you really like? I love how this one turned out.
Well, I do like Harsh Desire a lot for me. Hear My Plea, I like as well. There's no soloing on that. There's no improv. It's just the singer singing and me in unison with her, and we just basically play the melody. I don't ad-lib not one note. And that's on purpose. I wanted that to be prayer-like, and for it to be spire, not much of anything, except to portray the emotion that it is.
Yeah, I noticed on Hear My Plea, the drums were not even providing rhythm. It was all the piano and the bass were providing the rhythm, and so that color of alto and
the human voice
was really unique. How did you make that decision?
Because I knew it would be really unique, and also that it was beautiful. See, because the alto, the saxophone, where it is pitch-wise, is it's very much. It's like the female voice, and so I knew that would be a good blend. I also knew that it would be otherworldly and a little bit ethereal to have this voice in unison with the saxophone, the same note, and very quietly singing, and me playing quietly, and just the voice and the saxophone together, the texture of that sound, the human with a saxophone, to me I thought was compelling, and effective.
Yeah. Reflection of an election. Obviously we know which election you're talking about, and so it's the 2016 election, Donald Trump, and in terms of expression, what were you trying to really go after, and what emotions were you feeling when you played this?
Well, I'll start with the genesis of how the composition came into being. After the election, I was pretty depressed. I was surprised and also actually not happy. And I remember saying to my wife, Lynn, I don't feel like sitting around trying to play Giant Steps or Countdown on the saxophone right now. It's just like, well, that seems silly, what's up with that, And she said, well, rather than to mope and be sad and depressed about it, why don't you take those emotions and write something. So I did. And I don't normally like to do that. I like to write when I'm happy. To me, I can write better when I'm happy, even if I'm writing about sad things. I can do it better if I'm happy as a person for the moment. So I'm not used to like writing and not, you know, but this time I did, and this is what I came up with. So it is dark, because I felt dark, and also, but I did want to use some different nuances. I wanted to capture a little bit of film noir. It's a genre of filmmaking that had its heyday in the 40s, and always in black and white, usually detective or murder mysteries, and everything about it is dark. You know, the emotions involved are dark. It's black and white. A lot of the action is at night, and it's usually very urban and city. So when you think of film noir, you don't think of the country someplace in the, you know, Kansas cornfield. You think of New York, San Francisco, LA, nighttime, and all of the drama, and, you know, a lot of detective, you know, Sam Spade and you know, all these movies. Laura, did you ever see Laura?
Oh man, one of my favorites. Okay. Like Double Indemnity and like.
Yeah. Well then, see, there you got.
Oh, that's my favorite. Like, there's like no grays ever. There's like, all black and white. It's like,
So you really know.
Oh yeah.
So you'll feel with me and you'll talk later.
Oh please.
Yeah. So I love the film noir. I mean, I like it just because I like the era, I like the film, I like the genre, and also, as a musician, some of the greatest scores of music was written during that period. And there's a reason for that, because some of the young, talented, brilliant writers from Eastern Europe migrated to Hollywood with all of that knowledge that Stravinsky, Prokofiev, and all those great composers, Bartok, with all that harmony and modern harmony, migrated to Hollywood, and they became the ones who wrote the film scores for all those great movies. So that film noir is interesting on one level. The music, the scores that those guys wrote, as a musician, the harmony, the modern harmony, if you will, and just everything about it. But also, the saxophone and the alto is used a certain way in those films. And with the vibrato, it's depicting either some sexy scene and just bending the note. You bend the note. So I wanted to capture that feeling, an urban film noir feeling. And I also drew up on Duke Ellington and also Charlie Mingus. To me, my inspiration for that song was a little bit Johnny Hodges-like, Duke Ellington for sure, and Charlie Mingus as well. And Mingus loved Duke, you know, basically Mingus loved Duke Ellington and Charlie Parker. That was his two guys, and Jimmy Bland, the bass player. And Mingus wrote thematic episodic music too. You know, Mingus wrote music about protest was part of Mingus's menu in terms of writing. And so I drew up on that because I worked with Mingus for 12 years. And I'm definitely influenced by him to some degree, especially with ballad writing. So that was the approach I wanted. Still with the awareness of the middle of the Hebrew aspect of things. So even on that tune, I will have some nuance in there.
So a lot of people who would say, music is something that I just want to release to, I just want to sit back and relax, but at the same time, if it is really genuine, music and art can be very impactful politically, socially.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I think it's good. You can use it that way. I mean, you can do anything with music. It can be you can use protest, and you can. Music is you can do everything. You got you got protest. You got look how many music was written about war. What is that? A bunch of people killing each other for whatever reason, and you're going to write a whole symphony about it. Yeah. So war is a form of protest. So it's nothing new. Yeah, but music can be about we call the Greeks have the different kinds of love, like eros, agape. So eros, sexual love, love between people. Then there's another kind of love based reverence, the kind of love you have for God or for your mother or your father. Nothing to do with sex, but reverence. But they call agape. Agape. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. So music can be, of course, love between people. It can be reverence, prayer-like, has nothing to do with, sexual love. It can be protest. It can be everything. Everything that a human being is, and a human being is everything.
How do the stories you read like influence like what you play on your sax?
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Well, because it's all part of life. It's all part of consciousness. It is. It's part of is, and it's part of consciousness. It's part of it's thinking. So it's like what you think impacts and how you feel impacts everything you do. How you play basketball, how you run. It's like you can't divorce one from the other, because you are doing it. So your worldview, everything that you are, bad, good, or indifferent, when you get ready to do, I can sit here and do nothing and just think a billion things, right? But the minute I do this and do any one of them, whatever it is, I'm bringing everything I am to whatever I'm doing. I don't care if it's playing pool, baseball, or playing the saxophone. You're bringing your whole trajectory and your whole thrust of who you are for however long you've been who you are, and maybe even before that. So I'm putting everything in the reality pot. If you are, now when it comes to art, now you're dealing directly with the athletic part of what you're doing is the part of playing the saxophone, the drums, baseball, pool, bowling, golf. That's the athletic part, physical. But the rest of it is mental. So even if you're playing golf, yeah, it takes craft to know how to swing, but it takes this in here to know how hard to touch it, where to touch it to make the ball go there instead of there. It's all of that stuff that's here. Same way with the music, craft, physics, saxophone, drums. But this is, what do you do with the drums? What lick, what kind of lick, how fast, how slow, rim shot, this, boom, saxophone, this, what. So you got all that stuff. But who you are as a person is influencing all of these decisions you're making. All of them. Everything you do, whether to walk down the street and make a left turn rather than a right turn, is who you are. And what you do at any moment in time, whether to go left or right, can change your whole life. So it's all part of being. So when it comes to playing music, you're basically playing your world view. Now, as a person, if you have no view, And there are people who really don't. I mean, there are people who really don't think too much about anything. They just react to stimuli. You know, something stimulus happens, they react. But they don't really think about anything, really, other than, I don't know. And some people think a lot. Now, we don't have to say, put like good or bad, put any value on it. It just is what it is. To me, I think if you have a world view, then everything you do is going to reflect that. And if you have none, what you do is it reflects that. You know, and usually, you know, it's nothing there. You know what I mean? But I don't know. That's just you can't separate the human being, the person, from the behavior, whatever it is. So I think, you know, when I was a kid learning how to play, you know, I grew up in Detroit, and I would, like you mentioned, I would notice that some of these musicians that would come over to Barry Harris's house, who was my mentor, would have these conversations about music sometimes, but more often than not, nothing to do with music. It would be about philosophy or politics or some great book or science or something. And these people could talk on it. I was impressed with that because I'm like 14, 15, and I'm just into music. I don't care about any of that other stuff. But when I saw that those people actually could not only play really good, but they were actually they actually had a world view. They thought about things. They weren't lightweights at all. These people were heavy and intelligent. And it was like, wow. And then that's when Barry said, he saw my report card one day, and there was a bunch of C's on there. He said, well, you can't, if you want to play this music here, you can't be a C student, because all these guys that you like are above average, at least here, you know, and you can't, this music is too complicated. You can't, you got to tighten up. And then that's when I started being concerned about, like, school. I never really gave too much of a care for trying to excel. I just wanted to pass. That was enough for me. But then when I saw how brilliant some of these people were, it's like, okay, well, let me, yeah. And then I was told that in order for you to have something to play, then you actually have to be a thinker. I mean, because it's like, I was taught that A minor to D7 or some paradiddle, mama, daddy, daddy, you know, something like, you know, that has nothing, I mean, that you got to conquer that, but that's not the real deal. The deal is your choices and what do you do with that. Well, then what you do has got something to do with who you are and how you think. So I was, you know, musically, I was taught by musicians that said, you use all of your technique and craft and schooling to express yourself. The schooling and craft is nothing unto itself. It's what is it, you know, pretty much like when you say language, for instance. If you want to write a great book, it's expected that you know how to write and be grammatically correct. That's not even the main event. The main event is what do you got to say while using nouns and verbs and sentences. They're just making you express yourself. That's craft, conquering how to write and the elements of writing. But what are you going to say after you learn that? So it's the same way with music. You can learn A minor, D7, this chop here, this lick here, fine. Now, what are you going to do with it? How are you going to use what that is? Because that in itself is nothing. It's just like language, you know. What is a noun or what is a verb? It's a part of speech, but it's, I mean, it's descriptive, you know. But how are you putting it together is what's making the art. It's the same way with music. So I learned that early on.
Just the choices that you made with that particular solo, how did you make those?
Are you talking about reflection on that?
Yeah. I mean, that was just a beautiful solo. You were targeting certain notes, and you know, how did you make those decisions?
Well, in just thinking about the decisions, you know, like I think the emotionality and what you're trying to portray, if you are aware of this, which you should be doing, that this gives the note. And it also gives the information what to do with the note, whether to bend it, whether not to bend it, whether to phrase it slow and then catch up. So it's just feelings. I mean, we have to, I mean, to me, music is just the physical manifestation that's used, in the medium used. So the emotionalities and all that, your humanness and your feelings at any given moment about whatever. Music is just the medium through which that's happening, and you're using that to say who you are. Like a writer writes, a painter paints, so that song is like it's depicting frustration and actually kind of like let me see, fear, darkness, foreboding, and what's going to happen with this. And we know it's a good. If I had known what was going to happen, I wonder what the tune would have been like if I actually had 4 years.
In terms of Nightfall and Marionette, these were all very closely tied to your family.
Yeah.
Marionette, I understand, was, I guess, released in an album that was in 1995, and so Camille must have been 3 or 4, so very early on.
Yeah, she's born in 1992. She was probably 3.
So can you talk about how it, I guess, the aspect of integrating your family into the compositional process, the motivation, the inspiration, that kind of thing?
Yeah, well, that was some of those tunes come from a record called Come Play With Me. And the inspiration of that record was me having a new child, Camille, my youngest. She was born in 1992. And so now I'm like new fatherhood and everything that is. And that's the space I was in. So when it came time to write music, I was kind of inspired by her, just this little girl, So I wrote tunes for her, and Marionette was written because there was this little puppet that she used to play with, strings and real jumpy tune, and so I wrote it and called it Marionette and I wanted the tune to sound like what a marionette looks like when it's bouncing and jumping all over the place. And that's how Marionette, and then I recorded that, and so that even the name of the album, Come Play With Me, is based on the child, come play with me, because I used to play with her a lot. I mean, I was in my 50s when I had her, my last child, which is a different, that's a different stage in a person's development, to be at that age and to have a new kid. So there's a certain element of delight that you can maybe have when you're older parent, because you're looking at them a little bit differently than you look at them when you're 23 and 24. A lot of that whole thing is just my whole play-like feeling during that period. So Marionette was from that, and also she started dancing at that time as well, ballet. So she's always been into, she started really young, 3 or 4 years old. She loved it right from the beginning. And I would take her quite often to the studio and be the one, with her there, driving her. Her mom too as well, but I did a lot,
One of the quotes that she says in the liner notes is, "I was also overcome with the reality that this father of mine was not only a gift to me, but a gift to the world." So as a late 20-year-old, and now you're in your early 80s, how does that feel, just kind of having that impact on your child?
It feels really good, because your children they can love you, but sometimes they don't have to like you, though, because there's the difference between love and like. Maybe it should, I always thought the definition of love and like should be the other way around. Because you can love people and not like them at all, you know. So, to be not only loved, which you maybe would expect, but to be liked by your kid is, to me, a higher level of love, actually. Because that means if they weren't related to you, they would still be your friend. That's a higher level to me. So yeah, for your kid to feel that way about you, I not only love him as a parent, but I like him. Well, that's icing on the cake. I feel really good about that. And the fact that she's feeling that way toward me, but it also makes me feel like I must have done something right to some degree, because when you don't, they don't like you. They might love you, but they don't like you. I'm talking about your parent, your children. So I felt, it made me feel good that I was a nice father to her. You know, I wasn't, you know, I was as you should be. You know, not oppressive, but loving, but still solid. You know, and enough so that I made her like me. That means that she knew I must have been expressing enough love for her to know that I love her, you know. And I think I did, you know. And so that makes me feel good. It makes me feel good about myself, actually, too, as well, you know. And the fact that she's an artist and a dancer, and music is extremely important to her. I mean, music really resonates with her. And she played music as well. She played piano, and then she played harp. So she's a musical person. She's musically talented, and certainly as a dancer, she really internalizes music. She feels it. This is what gives birth to how she is moving. And not only that she's doing a certain movement, but how she's doing it and the look on her face. So, and for her to be, for her to like the music I wrote, and for it to genuinely resonate with her, that's a very nice feeling too. You know, and to perform with her, to actually, because you know we perform those things live with the dancers. So to be on stage and playing and then seeing her, you know, quite often I have to, like, out of the side of my peripheral vision, look up now and then to look at her, because I had to really be looking at the music, because a lot of stuff was happening and you have to be correct, no improvised on that stuff, you know. So, but to be on stage and seeing her dance to music I wrote, that's particularly satisfying as well.
When did you start with the San Diego Ballet? How long ago did you?
Well, oh boy, let me see. Oh boy, well, Camille's been with them almost 9 years. 4 or 5 years that I have. Close to 5 years, I think. So I've written 3 suites and 2 medleys. You know, Song of Songs, Sweet Synergy, and then Reflection and Hope is also part of another suite altogether.
Could you talk a little bit about being, you know, just this jazz character, but a musical character, a cultural character in a quarantine world?
Mm-hmm. Well, the quarantine has, you know, affected everything, because we can't perform with live audiences, pretty much. We can't travel. So the world is different. A lot of things are online. You know, I've done virtual concerts, I've done clinics and master classes online. I think after all this is over, certain things will never be the same. I think even the world of academia is going to be more online stuff going on than before. Because I know a lot of them have kind of wanted to lean toward some of that anyway. So some things have changed, and maybe there are some good things from some of that. But yeah, it's definitely affected a performing musician, because we can't perform. We can't be around a bunch of people. I mean, I've used my time to just practice a lot, and just, and because when things do open up, hopefully, then I'm going to be ready. You know, I'm not going to be rusty. My chops are going to be happening, you know. And I have never lost my passion for playing. I love it as much as I did when I was 22 years old. I love it, maybe even more now, because I know more about what it is and why it is, and what it has to do with the human condition and even the universe itself. So I'm one of these guys. When I think of the phenomenon of music, I'm not just thinking of Countdown and Giant Steps and playing it in some bar. I'm thinking about what music is in relation to the universe. And a great scientist once said, music, all of matter basically is frozen music. Because everything has a note, everything has a tone, and everything is vibrating. Everything. Music is vibration. A440 on the piano is 440 of these little cycles per second. That's why A is A, D is something else. If I thump a glass with my thumb, it's going to be a note. It's going to be A flat, G, F, it's going to be something. Everything is music, because everything is frequency and movement. The joint is jumping. Everything is moving. Everything. Universe, atoms, everything is moving. That means it's a note. So Pythagoras and people like that, the Egyptians even before Pythagoras, they knew this. It's all about resonance and frequency. And that's what's given the diversity, actually, and dimension as well. So I'm aware of where music is in terms of the universe. It's the very fabric of the universe. So I think of it as a player who's actually using the elements of the universe, and I'm actually learning about what that is. I think of that as being a very fortunate thing, that I'm actually involved in something that is that important. And I treat it that way. To me, it's important, as well as an expression. It's actually more than that. I even think about things about what do certain notes, how would that affect a cell in the body? You know, does A flat resonate, and that vibration of that frequency make cells do this or that or nothing? Or is it certain rhythmic configuration? Does that do this or that? Certain sonic, certain tones, does that affect this? It affects emotions, you know, right? The music affects emotions. Certain things make you sad, happy. So that's on an emotional level. How do we know that certain tones, frequencies, notes actually affect the cellular activity of a human body? How do we know it doesn't do that? Really? So, okay, so I think that. So when I'm playing music, I'm aware of all of that. Everything about it. Okay, so, and all of that has got something to do with the note I choose for the moment. And so get back to the original question about the pandemic, I'm still thinking these things. I can think them real good now, because that's all I got to do is think, you know? And then I'm, you know. Now, I must say this, having said all of that, it's not like I know, I'm just very much aware of of a million different possibilities. That's all I do know, that you got all of that. I know that. But I'm not saying I have all the answers.
What is your general advice for people like us to stay active, be, you know?
Yeah, I would think my advice to anyone during this period, this pandemic, and just in general, is to be active and still be creative as much as possible, and still be active. To me, you know, and it's not like, you know, I'm guilty to some extent, but to do nothing is like the worst thing you could do, to do nothing. So always do, and then try to make it not be, you know, evil or detrimental to you or anybody else, you know. So I got to put that in there, because but to always be creative. I think that one of the things that human beings are supposed to do, I think creation, being creative, is like maybe the main event, because we are supposed to eat, drink water, and survive. Okay, and we're social beings, so yeah, we actually need each other. So we're supposed to do all that. But I think, yeah, besides that, just the animal part, I think the human part is like, well, I think you're just supposed to be creative, which means that you're always supposed to be doing something. I don't care what it is. Yeah, and to do nothing is like a waste of consciousness, you know. And being creative means, I don't care what it is. It can be music, it can be making pizzas, it can be playing basketball. I don't care. It doesn't make any difference what. It's just that to do as opposed to not to do. So in this, you're supposed to find something to do even with the conditions now with the pandemic. And maybe do some new things or something different. And it's on us to find it. And the other thing is, it's very important not to be bored. Like, and guess what? Not to be bored is up to you, to the person. If you got to rely on one other human being to keep you from being bored, you're missing the whole point. You have to be the one not to be bored. And then how do you do that? That you got to do. You got to, you know. So now I can say that intellectually, I know that's to be desired, but I'm not always, you know, right with that myself. But I do know that's really what you should do. I think I know what it is. I got it. I got the answer.
You got it?
Yeah, I got it. Here's the answer right here. There's no such thing as is not. It's just is. There's no beginning. There's no such thing as beginning and end. There's no such. There is. Always is, always was is the only game in town. That's it. And then that allows for everything. So it's either is or is not. And even is not is an is, because I named it.